Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience.
Admiral Vorkin stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Engineering Command's flagship, Celestial Horizon. His deep orange eyes, set in his broad reptilian face, flickered with suspicion. His scaled arms were crossed, showing his impatience as he watched the humans, those reckless, unpredictable Deathworlders, approach the wreckage of the Sci-Fairy Sovereign, an alien warship from a bygone era. The warship had been the pride of the Sci-Fairy people, a marvel of engineering prowess, now reduced to twisted metal and shattered crystal, floating lifelessly in space. "They walk with such arrogance," Vorkin muttered, his voice a low, growling rumble. His iridescent blue scales shimmered under the observation lights as his long tail swayed with irritation. "These Deathworlders think they can repair a warship that took our finest engineers centuries to build, with primitive tools no less." Beside him, Commander Illyria Nexus, her body glistening with her crystalline exoskeleton, nodded quietly. She too had doubts. "Their methods are unconventional to say the least," she replied, her voice resonating through the crystalline structure of her vocal cords. "But their results, Admiral, have been impossible to ignore. Humanity has been an enigma to us. They succeed where logic and technology say they should fail. That's no excuse for their blasphemous disregard for tradition and discipline," Vorkin snapped, his eyes narrowing as he saw one of the humans, a tall male with a cocky grin, adjust the straps on what appeared to be a simple metal toolbox. "Look at them. No reverence for what they're dealing with. It's like they're going to repair a broken hover cart." Illyria's translucent form flickered slightly, indicating discomfort. "Admiral, perhaps we should at least let them try. The Council has authorized their presence, after all." Vorkin grunted, his scales shifting to a deep, stormy purple. "Let them. But I will enjoy watching them fail." The humans, 3 of them, stood at the foot of the colossal warship wreckage, undeterred by the magnitude of the task ahead. The leader of the group, Lieutenant Alex Kale, a broad-shouldered man with sharp features and bright, mischievous eyes, looked up at the towering remnants of the Sci-Fairy Sovereign. He whistled, running his hand through his messy dark hair. "Well, boys and girls," Alex said with a grin, "this is gonna be fun. Who's got the duct tape?" Beside him, Sarah Wrench Carter, a petite woman with short-cropped hair, already had a roll of tape in hand. "Got it, boss," she said, her voice laced with enthusiasm. "And the bubble gum." The third member of the team, Marcus Spark Rodriguez, a lanky man with a perpetual smirk, was already rummaging through a bag filled with what looked like improvised Earth gadgets and tools. "I've got the quantum multi-tool ready. Let's see if we can't make this baby purr again." Admiral Vorkin sneered from the observation deck. "Quantum multi-tool? These humans can barely comprehend quantum mechanics, let alone have the tools to handle it." Illyria, however, seemed intrigued. "Perhaps we've underestimated their ingenuity, Admiral. Their species has been known to defy expectations time and again." "Enough talk," Vorkin growled, his patience thinning. "Begin the countdown. Let's see what these Deathworlders are truly made of." Below, Alex cracked his knuckles, glancing at the massive crystalline fracture running along the warship's hull. Golden energy flickered from within, leaking like the blood of a dying star. He took a deep breath, then turned to his team. "All right," Alex said, his voice lowering as the weight of the task settled in. "The Sovereign's core is unstable, and it's leaking radiation. Standard protocols won't work here. We'll have to improvise, but that's where we shine. Wrench, start patching the hull with whatever you can find. Spark, I need you to work on rerouting the energy flows away from the damaged sectors." Wrench immediately sprang into action, her deft hands working with rapid efficiency. She began slapping duct tape over the fractures, sealing the cracks with layers of reinforced material. Every move was fast and precise, as though she were fixing an ancient Earth car rather than an interstellar warship. Spark was already fiddling with a mess of wires, using what looked like a glorified Earth toaster to stabilize the power systems. "This core is like an overclocked PC running on fumes," he muttered, pulling out an old Earth graphing calculator. "We're gonna need to reset the system manually and recalibrate the quantum core." From above, Admiral Vorkin watched with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "This is absurd," he growled. "They're treating one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy like a child's toy." Illyria, however, was quiet, her crystalline eyes focused intently on the humans. "They're actually making progress," she said softly, almost in awe. Alex wiped the sweat from his brow as the ship's systems groaned under the pressure. "We're gonna have to realign the quantum harmonics," he muttered, pulling out a strange-looking tuning device. "Time to see if this baby responds to a little bit of Earth's finest engineering." With a flick of his wrist, Alex activated the device, and a deep hum resonated through the warship's hull. The fractures began to vibrate, slowly sealing themselves as the crystalline structure responded to the frequency. "Good job, Wrench," Alex called, his grin widening as the ship's systems began to stabilize. "Now for the fun part." Spark laughed, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Ready when you are, boss." "Let's light this candle," Alex said, slamming a switch. The Sci-Fairy Sovereign roared to life. The roar of the Sci-Fairy Sovereign filled the void of space as its engine sputtered and groaned back to life, vibrating with a power that had lain dormant for centuries. Alex, standing atop a precarious section of the ship's fractured hull, grinned with satisfaction. "That's what I'm talking about, team. Now, let's stabilize the core before this thing decides to explode." From the observation deck, Admiral Vorkin's eyes widened as the ancient warship, one he had long considered beyond repair, began to respond to the humans' efforts. "Impossible," he whispered, his scales flashing a deep green, a color that signified shock among his kind. "They've somehow stabilized the energy flow." Beside him, Commander Illyria remained silent, her crystalline form pulsing softly as she observed the human team in action. Her species, the Calixians, prided themselves on their vast knowledge of quantum technology, yet even she could not comprehend the humans' approach. They were using methods that defied logic, and yet, somehow they were working. "Admiral," she finally spoke, her voice tinged with curiosity, "they are bypassing systems that our engineers never even dared to touch. It's as if they found a shortcut through millennia of our engineering protocols." "Shortcut?" Vorkin scoffed, his tail flicking in frustration. "Or they are hastening their own demise. I refuse to believe these primitives can succeed where our finest have failed." Below, the humans were in a frenzy of activity. Wrench had rigged a makeshift harness and was now hanging upside down, patching up more energy conduits with strips of reinforced tape and bubblegum, a move that had the alien engineers observing her shaking their heads in disbelief. "Seriously, Wrench?" Spark called out, his hands busy reconnecting power cables using what looked like alligator clips from an Earth electronics kit. "Bubblegum." Wrench shot him a grin. "Hey, this stuff works wonders for microfractures. Plus, it's minty fresh." Alex laughed, the sound echoing through the damaged corridors of the ship. "Don't question the genius, Spark. She saved my ass back in the Omega Cluster with nothing but a chewing gum wrapper and a paperclip." Yeah, Spark muttered, but a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "All right, next up, activating the auxiliary power grid. Let's hope this old beauty still has some juice left." He reached into his bag and pulled out what appeared to be an antique Earth car battery, complete with jumper cables. Vorkin's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he watched the human attach the cables to two nodes on the warship's core. "Absolutely preposterous," the Admiral shouted, his voice a low growl of anger. "What do they think they're doing? Attaching a primitive power source to an advanced quantum engine." But then, the warship's systems began to respond. The auxiliary power grid flickered, and the lights embedded within the crystalline walls flared to life, casting a soft blue glow throughout the ship's interior. The ship, once silent and dead, now thrummed with the sound of ancient mechanisms reawakening. Alex gave a thumbs up to his team. "There we go. Systems are booting up. Spark, we need those diagnostics running. Wrench, I want a full scan of the mainframe." "On it." Wrench replied, pulling out what looked like a modified tablet. She began tapping furiously, and the screen displayed a series of complex alien symbols. "Core is stabilizing, but we've got some serious interference in the secondary conduits. Looks like the ship's neural network is trying to reboot but keeps running into corrupted data. Can you patch it?" Alex asked, his tone serious. "Of course," Wrench replied, already pulling out a soldering iron. "Just give me 5 minutes." Admiral Vorkin's scales flickered between disbelief and annoyance. "They're not even using protective suits," he hissed, watching as the humans continued to work barehanded. "The radiation levels alone should have melted their skin." Illyria's crystalline form shifted to a pale lavender, a sign of contemplation among her species. "Humans are resilient, Admiral. They have a tolerance for extremes that is unmatched by any other species we've encountered. Resilient or suicidal? Vorkin snapped, his gaze fixed on Alex, who had moved to a control panel and was now typing furiously. I bet they won't survive the core ignition sequence. Their arrogance will be their undoing. Inside the ship, Alex frowned as he stared at the control panel, trying to decipher the alien language. Okay, we're gonna need to bypass the security protocols on this thing. Spark, think you can crack the encryption? Already ahead of you, Spark replied, pulling out a handheld device that looked suspiciously like a hacked gaming console. Just a few tweaks, and boom, we're in. A series of lights lit up on the control panel, and the ship's AI system flickered to life. Warning, core reactivation initiated. Security protocols in effect. That's not good, Alex muttered. Looks like the ship's AI is trying to revert to factory settings. If it completes that process, the whole ship might shut down again. Wrench jumped down from her position, wiping the sweat from her brow. I've rerouted power to the backup systems, but we need to stabilize the core fast. If it goes into lockdown, we're screwed. Leave that to me, Alex said, pulling out what looked like an earth tuning fork. Time to hit this baby with some old-school resonance tuning. Spark raised an eyebrow. You really think that's gonna work? Alex grinned. It always does. Now stand back. He struck the tuning fork against the metal surface of the control panel, sending out a low, reverberating hum. The sound waves resonated through the ship's hull, and the crystalline walls began to glow brighter, responding to the vibration. The AI's warning messages started to slow, and the ship's power levels began to stabilize. Core alignment at 70%. 80%, the AI announced, its tone shifting from one of urgency to one of calm. Core stabilization complete. Spark pumped his fist in the air. That's what I'm talking about. But Alex's expression remained serious. We're not out of the woods yet. The main reactor is still offline, and without it, we can't restore the ship's full functionality. Wrench's eyes lit up. I think I know how we can kickstart the reactor. We just need to use a controlled overload from the auxiliary grid. If we channel the energy through the neural pathways, it should reboot the entire system. Spark blinked. You mean like jump-starting a car, but with an alien warship? Exactly. Wrench smirked. Think you can handle that? Spark grinned. Is that a challenge? As the humans began their final preparations, Admiral Vorkin watched with growing apprehension. This shouldn't be possible, he muttered. No species, no matter how advanced, should be able to restore a ship of this magnitude with such crude methods. Illyria, her crystalline eyes locked onto the humans, whispered, Perhaps, Admiral, we are the ones who have been crude all along. The countdown to ignition began, and the entire observation deck held its breath. The fate of the Hytharian sovereign, and the truth about human ingenuity, hung in the balance. The countdown echoed ominously through the observation deck as Admiral Vorkin and Commander Illyria watched the humans complete their final preparations. The alien engineers around them whispered nervously, their disbelief turning into a mix of fear and fascination. The entire Galactic Engineering Academy had gathered, waiting to see if these Deathworlders could achieve the impossible. 10. 9. The ship's AI announced, its tone neutral but tinged with the weight of ancient protocols. Alex Kale's fingers flew across the control panel, his eyes locked on the fluctuating power levels displayed on the screen. We're running out of time, he shouted. Wrench, how's that conduit looking? Wrench was already deep inside one of the ship's access shafts, a trail of cables and duct tape marking her path. Almost done, she called back, her voice muffled as she worked furiously. Just a couple more adjustments. 8. 7. The AI continued, its tone growing more insistent. Spark, positioned at the auxiliary grid, connected the final set of cables. All set here, boss. Just give the word, and we'll pump the power straight into the reactor. All right, team, Alex said, taking a deep breath. This is it. We've only got one shot at this, and if we mess up, we'll be picking pieces of ourselves out of orbit. From the observation deck, Admiral Vorkin's scales had shifted to a stark white, a shade reserved for moments of both revelation and dread. They're actually going through with it, he muttered, unable to look away. They'll either save the ship, or destroy themselves. Illyria's crystalline form glowed softly. They possess a courage unlike any I have seen, Admiral. They face the unknown with such confidence. Foolishness, Vorkin retorted, though his voice lacked conviction. Or bravery beyond comprehension. The Sci-Fairy sovereign shuddered as the humans rerouted power, energy surging through the newly repaired systems. The crystalline walls glowed with a pulsing light, the ship seemingly coming alive with each passing second. Sparks flew as Alex reconnected the final set of wires. 6. 5. The AI's countdown echoed. Hit it, Spark. Alex commanded. Spark activated the power transfer, and a surge of golden energy shot through the ship's conduits, racing toward the reactor core. The entire warship vibrated, as if responding to a heartbeat that had been silent for centuries. From above, the alien engineers watched in silence, their collective breath held. This was the moment of truth. 4. 3. Wrench climbed out of the access shaft, wiping sweat and grease from her brow. Conduits are stable. We're good to go. 2. 1. Alex's eyes locked onto the reactor display. Now Wrench. Wrench activated the overload sequence, and the entire ship's system roared to life. For a split second, everything seemed to slow down. The lights flickered, and the power levels spiked dangerously. The Sci-Fairy sovereign groaned as the energy surged through it, the ship trembling on the edge of collapse. Warning, energy levels critical. Reactor destabilization imminent, the AI blared, its voice now echoing with a sense of urgency. Halt Togeter. Alex yelled, his eyes burning with intensity. Come on, baby, hold together. In that moment, as the ship systems hovered between life and death, Wrench pulled out one last trick, a tiny device she had cobbled together using pieces of the human toolkit and alien tech. She slapped it onto the main control panel, and the device emitted a soft, pulsing hum. What is that? Spark asked, his face etched with concern. Just a little something I whipped up, Wrench grinned. It stabilizes the energy flow by syncing it with the ship's harmonic frequency. As the device activated, the reactor's warning lights began to dim, and the ship's vibrations steadied. The energy flow smoothed out, and the Sci-Fairy sovereign seemed to sigh with relief as its systems aligned. Reactor stabilization achieved, the AI announced. Quantum Core online. Full functionality restored. The ship's interior lit up in a brilliant display of colors, the walls pulsating with energy. The power surged back to normal, and the once broken warship now stood in its full restored glory. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as their most advanced creation, believed lost, was brought back to life by the hands of humans. From the observation deck, Admiral Vorkin's scales shifted to a deep gold, a color of both awe and acceptance. They did it, he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. They actually did it. Illyria's form shimmered with pride. Human ingenuity, Admiral. It's something we cannot underestimate. Below, Alex let out a triumphant laugh, raising his fist in victory. Hell yeah. That's how you fix an alien warship. Spark grinned, high-fiving him. Earth engineering at its finest. Wrench wiped her hands on her jumpsuit, her smile wide. And a little bubblegum magic, of course. Admiral Vorkin's voice crackled through the comms. Humans, you have done the impossible. You have restored the Sci-Fairy sovereign. Your methods may defy logic, but your results speak for themselves. On behalf of the Galactic Engineering Academy, I offer my congratulations. Alex gave a mock salute. Just doing what we do best, Admiral. Vorkin hesitated, then added, we may have much to learn from your kind. Your bravery and unorthodox thinking have shown us a new way. Illyria's crystalline eyes focused on Alex. Lieutenant Kale, your team has surpassed every expectation. The Council will be honored to learn more from you. Perhaps you could teach a course, introduce us to these Earth methods. Alex exchanged a glance with his teammates, then shrugged with a grin. Only if you promise not to use bubblegum without proper supervision. As the Sci-Fairy sovereign floated above them, fully operational and gleaming under the starlight, the Galactic Engineering Academy celebrated its revival. The humans, their hands stained with grease and their faces lit with satisfaction, had not only repaired an ancient warship, they had shown the galaxy what humanity could accomplish when they set their minds to it. Vorkin watched as the humans were embraced as heroes, his eyes lingering on Alex. For the first time, He felt a hint of admiration for these Deathworlders who had challenged centuries of tradition and emerged victorious. Perhaps, he mused to Illyria, we have underestimated humanity's potential. Illyria's crystalline form glowed warmly as she replied, or perhaps, Admiral, they are only just beginning to show us what they're capable of. And as the Hytharian sovereign powered up, preparing for its first journey in centuries, Alex and his team stood proudly, knowing that they had not only repaired a ship, they had bridged a gap between worlds.